You're watching 90s Rock in 9 minutes. I'm Sam Bass, this is Ashley, and today we're going over The Downward Spiral by 9 Inch Nails. This is one of my favorite albums of all time, and here's why. This album came out on March 8th, 1994, and this was one of the first albums I can remember in the 90s when I got to high school borrowing from somebody. Because first off, have you heard that song Closer? The one that's like, I want to F you like an animal?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I remember my cousin told me one time that around the time that it came out or a little later, that there's a song on the radio that says that. And I was like, no, and I didn't believe it. And then one day we were driving around, my mom driving me around, and I hear this, and I'm like, instantly, I have to hear the rest of this album.
I can't imagine it being on the radio. That actually is quite shocking.
Yeah, not only was it on the radio.
I'm sure your mother thought that was quite shocking too.
My mom went and bought me this album after she
No.
No, and that is a good point. I don't think my parents wanted me to have this album, but I borrowed it from somebody.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I played the record, and none of the other songs sounded like that. And that was the first time I realized every song sounded like a different band. And I didn't know you could do that. I just didn't realize that anybody would do that. And the reason for that, actually, is because, part of the reason, is this is actually a concept album. The Downward Spiral. It's like a storyline of this guy named Mr. Self-Destruct. That's his name. It's song number 1. And he goes on a self-destructive journey, confronting, all his different emotions that he's going through. And, and then finally at the end, I think he takes his own life in a way, but there's a song after that song. There's a song that kind of describes that happening, but then there's a song after that. So it's all sort of just like a loose concept. Obviously created by Trent Reznor.
Music genius.
Music genius Trent Reznor. Yep. Which, if you haven't seen, he started out in a super 80s, just kind of 80s poppy band. And you never would have guessed, if you go back and watch the footage of him, on the keyboard, that he would wind up becoming this symbol of loathing and self-hatred and darkness in the 90s. That would go on to sell millions, It's not your standard, just flip open CD,
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a lot of, abstract paintings.
Well, I'm talking about, the way it's constructed. And, there's a smaller disc case, and then you have a booklet, and then you have an oversleeve.
See, I didn't really notice that. But, okay, so this is really thin. I can see that.
Yeah, this is what they used to put out, singles on. And, but you raised a good point. You're talking about the artwork itself and how it looks.
Yeah, I was saying the artwork looks like abstract paintings.
This was actually commissioned by Russell Mills. He did some art pieces, and then they photographed those. He wanted album art that looked really organic. The songs were kind of mechanical and machine driven and stuff. Some of it. He wanted something that was
contrasted.
Yeah, contrasting that, and he did it.
Yeah. Yep. I know now.
I know, you know. That's Stone Temple Pilots. So.
Oh, that's nice. That's good.
Oh, like the disc?
I like the pattern.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like a spiral.
Yeah, it looks almost like a blade.
Well, I thought it was like a shell. And it's
it looks like a shell.
The downward spiral, or like a fossil.
Okay.
You got the spiral pattern.
Sure.
One thing's interesting to note is Richard Patrick of Filter was in the band. And he dropped out right before this album started getting produced. And the song Piggy on here is about him, or is inspired by him.
That sounds kind of mean.
It was definitely one of those, I think Trent was kind of hurt, by him leaving.
Yeah.
And that's what he came out with Piggy. But Piggy was Richard Patrick's nickname for some reason.
Hi everyone, this episode is sponsored by Rainbows and Smiles, a fun Etsy store where you can get original designs to add to t-shirts, bags, mugs, and much more. You can also get posters with your favorite celebrities or beautiful scenery to add to your home, and also turn your images into custom designs to print on anything you would like. Thank you, and back to the show.
This album, Trent Reznor moved into the very house in California where Charles Manson committed some of his most heinous crimes. Yeah, and he recorded the album in there. And to Trent's credit, though, I've read that he said he was just fascinated with that part of American history, and he moved in and was recording there. But then one day he ran into Sharon Tate's sister, and Sharon Tate was one of the victims of these crimes.
Okay.
And he ran into her sister, and she asked him, like, what are you doing? Are you trying to exploit my sister's, untimely death and stuff? And Trent, that made him click in his head, and he actually felt really bad about, or he didn't want to be misunderstood, and like he was trying to capitalize on that. And I read that he went home and cried, and so it finally clicked to him. And he moved out after that. Like, when I was in high school and I would listen to this album, I would put it on, and it was like a journey, and I really loved taking that journey. To me, I used to connect with the material a little more, and then as I got older, I just realized, like, this is really dark if you just take it in like that. And I stopped listening to Nine Inch Nails and stuff for a while, but I love this music. My point is, I came back to it, and I view it as like if you watched a scary movie or something. It's sort of just like a scary movie you watch, and then you put it away. You don't identify with Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees. I jammed this bad puppy as much as I could, and I even have some artwork that I drew in high school of Trent Reznor and that. So this was genuine, how everybody had their high school days, and you had your bands, and they had their posters, or you wanted to dress like them or whatever. Mm-hmm. It was definitely Nine Inch Nails was my band.
So what does that include? Like some long, dark hair, pale skin? I don't know what he wears.
Some combat boots. Some overly long shorts, and a black t-shirt, and you're good. And that's how I dressed for a while. I really have to say, I just want it to be known, Trent, if you ever watch this, you were one of my high school heroes. And that sounds corny, I guess, to say anybody is your high school hero. But he was, and he inspired me to make music, and it was comforting to hear some of this music and hear somebody saying things that I was feeling. So, at that time, like I said, I moved on, and now I just view it as like a scary movie.
What do you think, just like maybe making music like this helps someone process that experience? It does the same for someone who's experiencing something similar. It's like a way to process it, and yes, to not feel lonely in that situation.
Yeah. That's, I think, one of the biggest problems that we have as a human, or I have, is that you feel like you're just alone in whatever situation you're going through. And that is not true. And the more we bridge those gaps, the better we'll be as a human race.
Amen.
This has been another episode of 90s Rock in 9 Minutes. I'm Sam Bass. This is Ashley. Be sure to comment, like, and subscribe.